share the reading with us this morning is from Isaiah 41 and 42. It starts at verse 27 of Isaiah 41 and then goes on to chapter 42, verse 9.
Isaiah 41:27. The first shall say to Zion, Behold, behold them, and I will give to Jerusalem one that bringeth good tidings. For I beheld, and there was no man, even among them. And there was no counsellor, that when I asked of them, could answer a word. Behold, they are all vanity, their works are nothing, and their melted and cast images are wind and confusion. Behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth justice to the nation. He shall not cry nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth justice in truth. He shall not fail, nor be discouraged, till he have set justice in the earth, and the coasts shall wait for his law. Thus saith God the Lord, he who created the heavens and stretched them out, he who spread forth the earth, and that which cometh out of it, he who giveth breath unto the people upon it, and spirit to them that walk in it. I am the Lord. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant to the people, for a light of the nations, to open blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and those who sit in darkness out of the prison house. I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to carved images. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Behold, they spring forth, and tell you of them. Amen.
Oh yeah, sticky throat this one is I'm not affected with it at the moment, but there we are, we come through now. So hopefully it's clear. If you read Isaiah 42, there are two servants mentioned. One in the plural, one in the singular. And it's a job sometimes to find out who's who. There are various chapters in Isaiah that tells of the servant. And in one verse he's speaking of the servants. And then in the next verse he's speaking of the servant. And in some verses in the same verse he's speaking of both. But the two servants differ very much. Chapter 42, verse 10, it's a verse that I didn't ask to be read, but it says simply this: You are my witnesses, plural, and my servant. Verse 18 says, My servant is both blind and deaf. Chapter 41, the chapter that we looked at last week, talks of this servant as well, and it tells us who it is, this plural of servants. You, Israel, in chapter 41, verse 8, are my servant. And so they're at this stage where God is speaking of them in a time when they were going to be in great difficulties. He turns and he says to them, he says, you are both blind and deaf. Despite all her privileges, she can't see him, she can't hear him. And there is tremendous dismay at the failure of Israel in regards to this. Romans chapter 9 talks of their great privileges. They were given the adoption, they were given the promises, they were given the service of God, they were given the covenant, they were given the ordinances, they were given the glory. They were given all those privileges, but they are both deaf and blind. Are we deaf to him this morning? Are we blind to him this morning? Do we hear him now? Do we see him now? We see in chapter 41, at the end of the chapter, that the Lord from heaven scans. I looked for a man, and there was no one. I looked for a counselor. I looked for someone who could guide. There was no one. Ezekiel takes up the language and looks back, not looks forward, but looks back at the heart of Israel's problem, is that they had shepherds that did not know. Shepherds that could not guide. And so the promise in Ezekiel would be this, in chapter 34, I will send the good shepherd, a shepherd that will guide, a shepherd that will see, a shepherd that will hear. And so Ezekiel speaks of the past, and then he speaks of the future. This is what God says now. He looks to the future, and he said, this people, when they're in Babylon, nigh on 150 years after this, when he's speaking, he says they will be both blind and they will be deaf. And yet I will look amongst them for a counselor. I will look for one amongst them who will intercede. I will look for one amongst them who is a man, and he will bring good tidings from Jerusalem. And we could go off at a tangent there, but we're not going to. I've got my foot stamping down left on the left-hand side of me to stop me going over there. So we'll stay away from that one. We'll come back to that in maybe a week or two's time about this one that will bring good tidings to Jerusalem. As he looks and he scans, he says this in verse 1. Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. So he scanned all of Israel. And he says, now listen now. I'm talking of something that you'll be in about 150 years' time. But I want to talk to you now about something that goes on even further. I want you to look at my servant. Look at him. We used to say, go was a good way of starting a fight, wasn't it? Who are you looking at? Have a good look. Take a photograph. Can I say this to you, not to start a fight? Who are you looking at? And have you got a good look? Because what God says here, to a people who at this time, when it comes to pass, will be strangers in a strange land. They will be foreigners. They will not have opportunity to sacrifice and communicate with God. They will be a people isolated, condemned, persecuted. They will be a people that don't know what to do. And God says to them, behold my servant. Isaiah pens 4 songs. He probably pens a few more songs, but 4 songs in particular, so we are told, about this one called the servant. Each time in the song he's penned as the servant. It's this one in Isaiah 42, Isaiah 49, and then Isaiah 50, and then the one that we're perhaps more acquainted with, Isaiah 52 and 53. Each time it's typified by this singular description of him, my servant. Look at him. Behold him. And so we find that here God speaks. Who is this servant then? Who is he? Well, Matthew tells us. He takes from Isaiah 42, verses 1 to 5, and he tells us who this is. In Matthew 12, if you want to read it, at some point along the line, verse 15 onwards, you'll find Jesus fulfilled this prophecy to the T. And we find in the 4th song that Isaiah penned, Isaiah 53, when the Ethiopian is riding along in his chariot to go home, Philip joins him and he turns and he says, as he's reading the book of Isaiah, he says, Philip, can you tell me something? Who is this man speaking of himself or of some other man? And Philip turns to him and says, now listen, he preached unto him from that very same verse that he was reading, Jesus. Our circumstances and our needs very often command our full attention. They become the dictate of our life, our immediate needs, our immediate circumstance. And as he's speaking to this people who, when we've gone through Isaiah 40 and Isaiah 51, we have glimpses of how they are feeling. They are feeling that God doesn't know about them. They are feeling that God doesn't care about them. They are turning to themselves and looking at themselves to such a degree that God says to them, do not look at yourselves. So where are we to look then? Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen, in whom my soul delights. I put my spirit upon him. We find the almost identical situation in the book of Revelation. In that book, John is on an island as a prisoner. It is fair to say that history says that he'd already been martyred, but they couldn't kill him. They had tried to execute him, but it had failed, because he was still to write the book of Revelation. He's on that island as a prisoner. He writes of a church that has lost their first love, that have been told to be faithful unto death, that were living in darkness, dictated to by a dark, dark spirit that he called Jezebel. We are told of a church that have a name that they're alive, but in actual fact they're dead. We have a name of a church that says that they have a little strength, and we have a church that turns the stomach of Christ. They are so putrid, so defiled, that it turns his stomach. And now, what are we to do in that immediate circumstance? We look at it and we think, well, how are we going to get out of this? What does the future hold? I can't see myself getting out of this pit. I can't see myself getting out of this hole. The circumstance is dictating to me. And then he writes these words. I saw in the right hand of him that sat upon the throne a scroll written on both sides, sealed with 7 seals. And we come to find out that that scroll holds the future. Everything that is relevant to us for the future and ultimately to the end. And then we're told there's a strong angel proclaimed with a loud voice, who is worthy to take the scroll and to loose its seals? No man was found worthy in heaven, in earth, or under the earth. And John said, I wept much, for no one was found worthy. Then one of the elders protested to me, do not weep, John. Behold, there it is, look. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root and the offspring of David, has prevailed to take the scroll and to open its seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne, in the midst of the living creatures, in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as it had been slain. And I saw when he went and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. You say, well, I don't quite see the connection, Matt. The future is now in his hand. John is still on Patmos, but the future is still in the hand of Christ. The circumstance hasn't changed. It's not going to change. In fact, it's going to get worse. But the future is still in his hand. We sing that old Negro spiritual, isn't it? He's got the whole world in his hands. Remember what Isaiah said about God being so big? He can hold the waters in the hollow of his hand. He can span the heavens with his hand. He can take a mountain and put it in a beaker. He's got such size about him. He is immense. He's huge. The future is in his hand. The circumstance hasn't changed. Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at? And have you had a good look? Let's have a little look at him. Verse 1 says, He will bring forth judgment or justice to the Gentiles. The word there, justice, judgment, can be swapped over. It's a negative and positive meaning to it. Here it means the negative. Justice is wrong here. It's judgment. It's judgment. He will bring judgment to the Gentiles. You see, that's in the far distance. He's not just talking about Babylon in 150 years' time. He's talking about the very end. The Gentiles will be judged because of the way that they treated God's people. But this is the amazing thing. This hammer that has been used to bring Israel to the dust. Notice what it says in verse 2. I will make him a light to the Gentiles. The very thing that has been a curse. The very thing that has been a difficulty, the very thing that you're sat in, suddenly becomes something that God is able to change. He can judge it, but he can also enlighten it. We have this verse, don't we, in the book of Romans. We know, not that we think. You see, there are some things that we don't know. Paul says that in Romans 8. We do not know what to pray for as we ought. There are some things we don't know. Anybody tells you that they know everything, then they're talking rubbish. We don't know. But there are some things we do know. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. Now, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it. But he does it. That's his ability. And the Gentiles who have done nothing but persecute, undermine, distance, and everything else that they can for the people of God, they will be judged. But that same God can cast light to them, and the very curses become blessings. What a marvelous God this is that we find in the servant. Let's have a little look at some other things. It says, he goes very Welsh in chapter 49. There's a lady up in Ruth that I've been down, she prays like this, indeed, Lord. She always says indeed. Every sentence Mary opens up with this, indeed, Lord. You know we're in need. Indeed, Lord. It's a wonderful thing to praise him. She says indeed all the time. I wonder if a relative of yours who's here penning these words. Right? Isaiah 49 says this, indeed. Indeed. It is too small a thing to restore Israel. Therefore, I will give you as a light to the Gentiles. Oh. We look at Israel, don't we? We think, how thick can you be? We look at our friends sometimes, and you might look at me and say, well, how thick can you be? It's too small a thing. He needs more to occupy himself. He is so big that he can restore Israel in all her mess, and in the same way reach out to the nations. Indeed, it's too small a thing. But we deal with nations. Let's have a little look at his nature. Verse 2 says this. This is part of the thing that Matthew recalls. He will not cry, nor lift up his voice, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. We know in John 7 that he stood and cried with a loud voice. It can't mean that type of thing. At a time he stood, didn't he, and cried out at the grave of Lazarus, come forth. He shouted. And it's the nature of the voice. That's what's being spoke of here. There are some homes you can walk past sometimes. Remember when we were a boy up here, there was one house we used to stand just outside by the bank, just by the side of the house, to hear the rows that were going on inside. You could hear their voice in the street. There was an altercation there. In fact, there were 2 houses there where there would always be noise. There would always be some sort of row going on. And all the boys, and about 15 of us in the street, would just sit on the bank and just listen if we were that bored. His voice won't be heard out in the street. You catch the flavour of it in the next verse. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoking flax he'll not quench. It's a small thing for him to restore Israel. To occupy the bigness of his heart, he reaches out to the world. But then he narrows himself down, as he often does, and he turns and we read this of his nature. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoking flax he'll not quench. What it says in the 3rd song of Isaiah, Isaiah 50, says this: He has given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. You battle scarred this morning. Are you tired this morning? Are you weary? Are you your light just about to go out? Is the reed about to break? You've blown with the wind over the years, you've managed, but now you've got a bit more rigid, and you can't bend with the wind anymore. And the wind will get it. It'll snap you. If you walk out in the country roads, don't do it when you're driving, because you might have a bump. You'll see a telegraph pole. And you'll notice, we'll go from pole to pole, you'll notice that the cable is twisted. And when they put the cable up, they twist it. If they don't, the wind will catch the pole, or catch the wind, catch the cable, and the cable can snap a pole like that, just by going up and down. It'll start doing that, but with it twisted, the wind just goes around it and around. Can't touch it. If they don't twist it, I've seen poles snap. 9-meter poles, that thick out in the country, and snapped by a cable that thick. It's amazing what the wind can do. You see, we've got to be able to bend with it. The palm tree, one of its secrets is got roots that go down probably further than what its height is. But the other thing is this: it can bend with the wind. It can bend with it. But we get so beaten. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoking flax he'll not quench. He knows how to speak a word to those who are weary. Verse 4 says this. Again, speaking of his nature, he will not fail nor be discouraged. He will not fail nor be discouraged. I was telling them on Tuesday that the Vision of Hope money, I had it in an envelope. I put it in a wage packet like one of these. I thought it was brilliant because the envelope keeps on breaking. Keeps on breaking. And I thought, oh, if I put it in there, it'll be fine. Judith, where's that? I'll never. Well, we get put off. We won't try things, it just won't work. It just won't work. You don't want to try. We've tried it before. This is now about him now, right? He will not fail. And he'll not be discouraged. Or you won't get anywhere with them. There's no point talking to her. Absolutely leave him out of the equation. He will not fail, nor be discouraged. You say, oh man, he's got God helping him, hasn't he? You know, he's got to watch his attitude. See what it says in Isaiah again, chapter 50. Wait a minute. There we are. The Lord God will help me. There we go, I told you. That's where he gets his help from. But watch what he says there. I will not be ashamed. I will set my face as a flint. Do you know Luke quotes that? He says this. He set his face as a flint towards Jerusalem. It was so clear that the Samaritans got uptight about it. That it almost gave the idea that he just didn't want to bother with them. He was set as a flint. Set as a flint. I remember David and Joyce telling me one time about that brother from Bulgaria that came to the church. What was his name? Harold Popov. And his brother, the one brother that came. This is how David described him. He had a face as if it was chiseled out of a rock. Like a face chiseled out of a rock. He set his face as a flint. He will not fail. He will not be discouraged. Chuck anything you want in front of him. He will not fail. He will not be discouraged. Give up on him. He will not fail. He will not be discouraged. I set my face. I'm determined to do it. Oh, behold my servant. Don't just look at what you've got right now. I know it's hard, but I've given you promises for now. Remember we looked at it in chapter 41, the I wills? When we looked at the past, I have. And we looked at the present, I am. And we looked then at the future, I will. I'll love you. I'll hold you. I'll rescue you. I'll redeem you. I will help you. I will help you. I will help you, he says 3 times. Do you think these people feel helpless? I think he gives us a hint how they feel, didn't they? All those things. But he said, no, listen, at the end, I want you to look further now. I want you to look right to the end. He will not fail. Praise God. You say, you don't understand, man. No, I don't. You say, you don't know what it's like. No, I don't. You've never walked on. No, I haven't. Some of you said it, and I can turn around and say, yes, I can. Yes, I do understand. But it still doesn't really put me in your place. He will not fail. He will not be discouraged. That's the Saviour we've got. Verse 7 says this. He opens blind eyes. Blind eyes. They haven't seen him. If you turn around and say, look at him, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. They couldn't see. But he opens blinded eyes. Verse 7 goes on to say, he brings the prisoner from the prison, and those who sit in darkness from the prison house. Imagine if you've been in sorrow. Imagine like Jeremiah when he was down in that well that they used as a prison, and the light was sealed off from him. And that old faithful friend pulled him up by those rags. Imagine how his eyes went as it hit the light. He's able to bring us out of the darkness into the light. Can I just ask this morning, right? Not being clever. Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at? This is after he has said how big he is. We looked at all those verses in chapter 40 that said how big he is. Chapter 41 gives us a little glimpse how Israel were going to respond to that. You don't know and you don't care. And then they're looking in the wrong direction. As I spoke to someone this week, and one of our early conversations with this, he said, "Man, I looked in the mirror, and that was enough. And it dictated decisions that he made at that time. I looked in the mirror and that was enough. Don't look at yourself. Don't. It's so frustrating ourselves, so it's important. I worked hard Thursday evening and Friday to try and lose some weight. I weighed yesterday. I put on a pound. It just don't work. You look in the mirror and you try to get your posture right. And you hold it and your chest has come out. Everything just moves. Don't look at yourself. Look at the servant. And oh, may God grant to each and every one and see that it's in his hand. More than that, you're in his hand. He will not fail, nor be discouraged. Blessed be his name forever and ever. Oh, what a God we've got that has made himself so personal that he needs so much to do. Israel, I love you with all my heart, he says, but you're not big enough for me. I need the world. And he becomes a light to all. What kind of God is this? That can narrow himself down and sees that wind that has got to that place where it can't bend, and the wind has done its damage. And he said, listen now, that reed shall not be broken. It will not be broken. That smoking flax is going to burn again.